Good Tuesday afternoon, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and Matthew. If you happen to be over in Spain on Sunday and you want to wander up and grab a ticket to that hot matchup between the Commanders and the Dolphins, it's going to cost you a pretty penny because there were 700,000 people waiting for the 70,000 tickets that went on sale for that game this week on Sunday morning. In Barcelona.
Wow.
So pretty amazing stuff. The NFL is cashing big time in Europe.
Yeah, we've talked about, or at least I've talked about, how I am not a fan of the early kicks, this, that, and the other. Not really having a great understanding of why the NFL continues to do this to their fan base. It's a pretty good look into why they're doing it, I'd say. Obviously, very popular over there. Something that is desired by enough people that they want to see those games. And I would be curious to know how many of those people are people taking a trip from America over to Spain to watch, their football team, a football game in general. Probably not very many, honestly.
Yeah, I looked into that. Of the games played this season thus far, and this shouldn't be surprising to anybody, the game in Ireland, the Steelers and Minnesota, the Steelers traveled 2,000 people.
Wow.
So 2,000 Steeler fans made their way to Dublin to watch that game, which means that 64,000 other people, from Ireland or the UK or wherever, figured that that's what they wanted to do, was spend a Sunday afternoon watching American football.
Yeah, that's impressive, to be honest with you. You've known when they do the crowd shots and stuff, these stadiums were full, but that's something that I've always wondered is how much of that cohort is people traveling from America, or maybe they originated in America, moved over there for business or something like
right,
that.
Expats, yeah.
I wondered how much that had to do, but I think outside of that, you've got a pretty large number of international people who just are curious or interested in seeing it. Like, for some people, it may just be the curiosity of it. Maybe not that they're dying to see it. They're interested in it. Just kind of curious to see what product it is.
Well, there's always also the people who want to be involved with the big event, right? They want to go because it's something that may never come back again. One of those kind of things. And I think when the NFL decided early about the fact that they were going to form a league there, I think that showed that that ended up not turning out well. Which basically is the same reason why when Real Madrid and Manchester United come to the United States, they sell out stadiums because they're the best in the world. So if you are a sports fan and you've read about the NFL and you live in Spain, it's a happening. It's something you want to do. It's kind of like Formula One is in the U.S. It's like they saw the Netflix documentary. They've watched it on television. Now they want to see it in real life. So I think there is a curiosity factor that you brought up. There's a casual fan factor, which you brought up. And then, of course, this is the expat of Americans living over in Europe who, have only get to watch the games, on television. Now they get to attend one. And they're, regardless of who's playing, obviously, because that 700,000 in Spain, there were 600,000 in, on who had registered for tickets in Dublin. So, economically, it's paying off huge for the NFL. So anything that pays off huge for the NFL, do not expect them to change it.
Yeah,
they're not going to do it.
That brings me up a different question, because especially now more than ever, it seems that everybody has a craving for more. maybe that comes to football games internationally or what have you. But in terms of expansion, because we talk about it in every league, you talk about it in
Hmm.
college, you talk about it in the MLB,
Hmm.
NBA, NFL is no different. Do you think there's a world where we end up with an expansion team outside of the United States? I'm not necessarily saying it has to be in like London, but just outside of the United States in general.
You mean no other expansion other than a team in a location in Europe
Well, I'm saying
or
like
Mexico or
just like
Brazil?
Canada, Mexico,
I yeah,
Europe.
I would think. While the owners might ponder that and think it might be a good idea,
Hmm.
I think the Players Association would throw a fit. Um, because if you're going to let's pick London to make it simple.
Hmm.
Because Tottenham, Hotspur Stadium there. If Jacksonville, and again, this is a hypothetical, they're not leaving Jacksonville, but I'm just throwing this out there. If the Jags were to leave Jacksonville and go and play in Tottenham Stadium, which is their owner owns the Tottenham Hotspurs,
Hmm.
um, and the stadium is like a 65,000 seat building.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the NFL would not like it because um, of the travel back and forth. The players, it's exhausting from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So I do think that they'll continue to use these as we talked about, like bowl games,
Yeah.
and they'll drum up as much info, as maybe 10 years down the line, there might be four or five teams that participate in um, what in essence would then be a reconstitution of the NFL Europe package,
Hmm.
where they play there. But I don't think that's anytime soon. I think that the fact that they can get these one-off games in Europe and move around Europe and do that is going to help them because it helps them sell their TV rights worldwide, which is coming up in 2030. They're going to renegotiate that deal. Um, and it also, it the merch that goes with it is crazy. So if you got an Amazon or a Netflix, who are worldwide brands, right? They stream whatever they stream goes everywhere. It doesn't just stop at the border. Um, that's possible. I think that's going to be good. If they do expand, I think we talked about this before, but if they do expand, it would make all the sense in the world to expand to Toronto and Vancouver.
Hmm.
Those cities. Vancouver gets the Seahawks games. There is actually a strong, you know, a strong uh, fan base for Seahawks in Vancouver and for the Buffalo Bills over in Toronto.
Hmm.
Um, there is also one in Windsor, Ontario, which is right across the Ambassador Bridge over the Detroit River into Detroit. The thing is that first of all, that they wouldn't put a another um, team that close to Detroit for Formula One, and the others, Windsor's certainly not big enough to pull it off.
Yeah.
But they could play. They can't play at Skydome anymore or Rogers Center because that was retrofitted for baseball. So there would have to be a football stadium built there. Now BC Place, which is where the Lions play out in Vancouver, that is an actual that's a football stadium. So a domed stadium. So they could do it out there. So you know, if that comes down the line, then I think that they'd be foolish. I think one of the things that the World Series helped was to figure out, wait a minute, you know, we've got all of these people in Canada, tons of people in Japan and down in the Caribbean area, all watching our games.
Hmm.
So we've got a worldwide product. Why wouldn't we want to put another baseball team somewhere in Canada?
Yeah.
So I mean, Major League Baseball, the the movement of the Raptors. I'm sorry, not the Raptors. The Memphis Grizzlies from Vancouver to Memphis was purely ownership standpoint. I mean, the owners were from that part of the country and wanted to move the team down there. And so when they bought it, you know, everybody kind of knew that the next step was going to be, we're taking the team down to Memphis, which exactly happened with the situation in Seattle, where the Sonics left and found their way out of uh, to OKC. So it's really what ownership really has the key point here on that. Now in baseball, they're looking for $4 billion per franchise when they get to the point of expansion. I've never seen, quite frankly, other than the cursory always Montreal situation on the docket. So I haven't seen a Canadian city other than, as I say, Montreal, which is it's going to be a long time before they do it um, on the list. So I don't know where that goes. Toronto is close enough to Buffalo where that might be an issue, but that's up to them. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would work as well in Montreal as it would in Toronto, and I know it would work out in Vancouver. So we'll see. We'll have to take a look and see.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you said it. The NFL, when they see those dollar signs the way they have with their international stuff lately, they are one to continue to try to grow and pursue those avenues at best they can.
Hmm.
So them getting hungry for a little something different wouldn't surprise me. However, I agree with what you're saying. Is there's just no way. It's great. It's great in video game theory when you can snap your fingers and your guys are over there in London. But in terms of practicality and travel, I'm not sure the Players Association will ever agree to a franchise across the pond.
No, I don't, and I think that the they're going to end up doing what the United States did. Okay, and that was making a concerted effort. Years ago that they wanted. People forever said we didn't. The United States hates soccer. Okay, and that mantra went on forever. But when they imported English Premier League soccer to the U.S., the ratings were good. The fan base was, people were buying jerseys like crazy. The MLS, who couldn't get out of their way, finally started to figure it out. Um, and it wasn't that the U.S. didn't like soccer; they didn't like bad soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the elevation of the ELP showed that people did watch the games and the Champions League games, then that worked to the advantage of Major League Soccer. So yeah, I mean, we can see what the NBA did and how that landed quite well. And I think that's what the NFL wants to do. They realize they can't be the NBA, and they can't have um, a FIBA type situation where you've got a solid core of players. I mean, look at all the French players who've been drafted in the NBA. All of them came from teams over playing in the European League.
Yeah.
So, and they're allowed, by the way, in the European League to play kids who would normally be in college here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um,
that's why you're getting a Victor Oyamba at such an early age, even though he didn't go to college.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it would have mattered where Victor Wembanyama went, just in terms of
Right.
who he is in general.
Right.
Uh, yeah, no, but you're saying that they're looking along the lines of what would, in essence, be a developmental league kind of a deal.
Yeah, the D League, in other words,
Hmm.
would you would use the what it's called FIBA, which is the international body for
Yeah.
basketball, and just like FIFA for soccer,
Hmm.
they have a Champions League, just like there's a soccer Champions League,
Yeah.
and and they've got a ton of very talented European players, and some kids who go from U.S. colleges and head over there that they're undrafted, and they get paid a pretty nice stipend to do it, and at the same time they get to play and build themselves up and playing in front of 20,000 people instead of a couple hundred people at a D League game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a broader and larger market to tap into.
Yeah, because all you need is a basketball and a hoop. You don't need a
Mhm.
football field size thing. You don't need all the equipment.
Yeah.
So it's very simple to play. In if you look at some of the early video, it was kids literally taking their soccer ball and using it as a basketball to play, um, on concrete courts.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like that's where we're headed, with the potential of them pairing up, which they could do, perhaps after the Olympic Games here in 2028. They'll pair them up and see what they can do to strengthen that bond, which is already pretty strong, now. But it may be fun. It may be fun to see, because the All Star game is boring as hell. It
Oh,
might be fun to see the All Star team play the number one team from FIBA's league,
yeah. The,
from the
the FIBA
Champions
All
League, or
Stars.
maybe even just an All Star team from the European League.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. That's one of Adam Silver's, well, up until this year, Adam Silver's biggest problem was, how do we attack the All Star game? How do we make the All Star game fun again? One that he has tried a litany of different
Right.
approaches, and so far he's come up unsuccessful every time.
Hmm.
Obviously, now he's got a slightly larger problem in the fact that he's had players gambling right under his nose that he had investigated and then cleared.
Right.
Um, but that's a different it's a different topic. But yeah, no, the NBA definitely needs some juice in that All Star game, and I think at a certain point you've tried enough formats with the guys that you have under contract in your league
Hmm.
that maybe it's time to start exploring some other options.
Well, look at how big of a deal and entertaining, frankly, for that matter, was the tournament in the NHL,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah,
Canada, the U.S., Finland, Russia. It was fun. It was fun to watch because these guys in some cases they play, on the same team, and now they're pitted against each other.
yeah. I mean, if this, I feel like I'm a pretty good example of that. Hockey's never exactly been a sport that I've really been all that into. I'm aware of it, never
Uh-huh.
really sat down and been an avid watcher of it. But when that was on last year during their All Star break, I
Hmm.
watched that. I got invested in that, and it's a different. It adds a different level of excitement and allure to that you otherwise just don't get with kind of a regular All Star game.
Well, and we had a little extra added juice here, not to get into the political side, but you know, with the tariff situation, with the all of the anti-Canada rhetoric that went on,
Hmm.
Canada had something to play for, and the U.S. had something to play for. It was more of a national pride of them against us. Usually, that's us against the Russians and not the Canadians, but um, it worked its way into to that kind of thing, which made it a lot more fun and a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I think in a certain aspect you had a little bit of the similar circumstances in the World Series, or at
Yeah,
least
true. Good point.
that's the way they kind of tried to paint it.
Hmm.
You know, the current sitting president loves social media, so he put something out
Right.
about how he was rooting for the Dodgers because they were in America, which I'm sure
Hmm.
made all of the Canadians and their government happy as well.
By the way, the Dodgers were the only team that had a Canadian on it, on the roster
Yeah,
from the two teams in the World Series.
the irony.
Yeah, you think? So yeah, I think that would be fun to tweak it. That you could have the international team come over. it's actually one of the things that helped the MLS for 2 or 3 years, where
Mhm.
they would, FC Barcelona or Chelsea or somebody would come over and play against the MLS All Stars.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the international play is forever going to be a good one because you think about it in basketball and the Olympics, like
Hmm.
it really it seems to be one of the more popular things now, especially with other international teams getting better when you come around Olympics time because now you're trying to dethrone the U.S. And
Hmm.
I think about the what's coming up. I believe it's coming up this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the World Baseball Classic is one of
Yeah, it's coming up in February.
yeah, that is one of Major League Baseball's best marketing tools. It is
Hmm.
fantastic baseball. It is nationalized. There's a different aspect of pride and where you're from,
Hmm.
and it just kind of brings a different juice to the game that you don't get the same kind of juice throughout. It's impossible to bring that same kind of juice through to 162 baseball games.
Hmm.
And it's got more juice than the All Star game, but what it is, it's a different outlet for baseball
Hmm.
that provides larger viewership, and to be frank, it's just more entertaining.
Well, if you think about it, right, we would never know who Shohei Ohtani was
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't for his first appearance in the country as a member of Team Japan,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think that that's part of it. I think the other part of it is that when we saw the record number of audience participation and streaming of the World Series, I mean the numbers in Japan where it came on at breakfast time
Mm-hmm.
were amazing. It's like people didn't even go to work in Japan. They just stood there and watched the baseball game.
Yeah. And I mean, it also, and I don't know how this is going to sound coming out. Hopefully it doesn't sound too bad, but there is a large conglomerate of Hispanic players throughout the
Hmm.
major leagues. And I
Sure.
feel like a lot of times people just kind of group them together. So I find it interesting to be able to have the differentiator because in all honesty, when, I, most people that I talk to, they don't like differentiate. They're just like, oh, it's a Latin player. Like
Right.
yeah, I don't know which Latin portion of the country they're from, but they're Latin. So I think it's cool to see those different rosters. I mean, the Dominican Republic has like a super team worth of stars when they roll their national team out. Japan's fantastic. They've got half of the Dodgers roster on their national team.
Right. The
Uh,
other half are Korean. Yes.
mhm. Yeah, it's I think it's a really fun, different showing, and these international things tend to get more people interested and invested in the sport, whether or not they're an average watcher of the sport.
Um, Without getting controversial here, I, I, I personally the yeah, the Olympics are coming in. They were last summer. They're coming. In February. For some reason, the U.S. doesn't, as a country, doesn't necessarily invest itself from a standpoint of the Olympians. Um, Unfortunately, it's not as big a deal as it is in other countries. I mean, to win the World Baseball Classic for Japan is like a major accomplishment.
Yeah, yeah, like people, I think it's part of the population issues. The U.S. has like so many people, and they're accustomed to winning all of these medals that
Hmm.
when you go into some of the smaller countries with less population uh, density, that like a gold medal is rare for some of these smaller
Oh
countries.
my gosh, yeah.
Some of these countries, like being able to bring a gold medal back to your home country, there's a different sense of pride that comes with it as opposed to the U.S. where it's just, you know. They make a little extra money. Like some of these countries have some insane incentives for winning medals,
Hmm.
not gold medals, just medals in general. So I think that partially plays a factor into it too. Is there's just
Oh
people that
yeah.
are more appreciative of the Olympians when they win.
By the way, the only time that this during the World Baseball Classic that the United States won was in 2017. They beat Puerto Rico.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they like
Japan, by the way, has won the most.
yeah. I mean, Japan is just like I think back to that team that won it. Coming up on 2 years ago now, that
Right,
Japan team where you had Shohei Otani ending it, striking out Mike Trout,
right.
but that team had Roki Sasaki, it had Yamamoto, it had
Hmm.
Shohei. Excuse me. And then they've also got newly posted first baseman Munetaka Murakami,
Hmm.
he's just a power guy. And I mean, they have bats down their lineup. I can't list them all off the top of my head, but just those five guys off the top of my head is they have a different sense of like teamwork. It feels
Hmm.
like when it comes to Japan, they may not necessarily out talent everybody all the way down the roster, but we talk about it all the time in sports and college sports in particular. The culture and the ability to be a team and what you're able to build in the locker room can go a really long way if you don't have enough talent to get you there in the first place. And
Well,
that's kind of the way
yeah,
Japan's operate.
it's interesting too. If one of the things that freaked out the umpires, they're now used to it, is that whenever Shohei comes up, because he leads off for the Dodgers,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and he does it every time. The first thing he does when he walks into the box is to greet the umpire and the catcher.
Yeah.
And it was a little jarring at first because people were like, well, what's he doing? Well, it's a tradition, it's an honor. And I did a for ESPN, we did a uh, kids, I think it was 16 through 18,
Mm-hmm.
baseball championship. And um, and South Korea was there, and the Dominican, and some of these baseball factories,
Mm-hmm.
along with the U.S. team. And it was such a treat to be around the South Koreans and the Dominicans, and see how they got along from very well. And many of these kids are now playing in Major League Baseball. Some on the and even on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
But it was such a good cultural aspect that you saw that these kids were having fun, and they were playing at a very high level, and they just didn't make mistakes. and,
Yeah.
and I think that's what you see. You brought it up a little bit earlier. The discipline
Mm-hmm.
of the Japanese players is phenomenal. I mean, they play fundamental baseball like nobody I've ever seen.
Yeah. The I'll give us I'll and then I'll say this and then we can move forward
Sure.
from our long baseball discussion here is the Japanese players have like a different style about them and the way they play
Mm-hmm.
baseball. And when I say different style, I'm talking different style from America, different
Mm-hmm.
style from South America,
Sure.
anywhere you find it, they have a different style. Look at their hitters and look at their pitchers. And although they're not identical, all of them, they are very similar in the way they hit and the way they pitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's very like regimented and exact. It feels
Mm-hmm. No,
it's
you're
interesting
right.
because I mean you'll look at Murakami when he comes into the league and the way he swings because I can tell you after watching a few years of Masataka Yoshida swing a baseball bat for the Boston Red Sox,
Mm-hmm.
they like it's something about holding the bat almost straight up and it's like a
Yeah.
sweeping motion the way they hit it's interesting. And then when I watch Yamamoto pitch and even Shohei, they have a very like it feels very step based in the way they pitch, but it's very regimented and it's consistent and it's good. Like Yamamoto throws what he throws effortlessly in terms of velocity. And I think it comes from being as mechanically sound as they all are.
Well, the other, just to finish your point on what you're talking about there, pitching wise, Shohei and Yamamoto, um, they have 5 pitches.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just give me 100-mile-an-hour fastball and then give me a slider. These guys can throw 5 pitches and throw them consistently well.
Yeah, yeah, it's a different game, and well, you can hear it from oh God, what's his name? There was a picture that is going to be or has just been posted from Japan.
Oh yeah, hmm
Let me see if I can find his name really quick.
yeah. I know who you're talking about. He's
But
supposed to be. He's supposed to be even better than Yamamoto.
yeah, he Tatsuya Amai, I believe is his name.
Okay.
He was officially posted from the Cebu Lions. Again, probably
Okay.
butchered that, but he was posted. But he was in an interview. He was talking about like kind of what he was looking forward to
hmm
in terms of coming to the major leagues, and he said he was looking forward to guys hitting him for power. Like he said, that's a big difference that they have over there. Is everybody just tries to foul pitches off, just foul, foul, foul. He said
Right.
work. He said everybody's trying to work my pitches, get my pitch count up, get me out of the game, and nobody's trying to hit a home run off of me. I'm looking forward to power versus power.
It's funny the one thing, and again, I know people tune in to listen to us talk baseball, but anyway, uh, sit down and learn, children. The thing that Yamamoto said when Doc Roberts might have had to go to him on 0 days of rest
Mm-hmm.
was that it's different. He pitches, as he said, and you mentioned it from a regimen standpoint. It's not as much his arm, as he put it, as it is with his legs.
Mm-hmm.
He said he can push off with his legs, and it's basically, he said he's thrown 140, 150 pitches in the Japanese league.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
said the pitch count didn't bother him, and his arm was fine. So he said he figured, if they need me he was it. I mean, if they had to go to the bullpen, that was last man standing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they didn't. But it's just, again, it's a mindset.
Yep.
And speaking of mindsets, when are we going to get a good Monday Night Football game? It just seems like, wow, those
Yeah.
two teams last night. I know that Aikman was trying to sell them real hard on
Mm-hmm.
the outstanding defenses, but seriously, I mean, come on, Troy. Um, that was not, was it good? It was a decent defense, yeah. Was it, a 10-7 defense? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a certain you can tell the difference between a 10-7 really good defensive game
Right.
and 10-7. The defenses did a pretty good job, but
hmm
the offenses did a lot to hurt themselves. And
Right. They did. They helped.
that was the case last night. I mean, when you watch an ugly offensive game, because I mean, we had one in that Denver and Raiders game on
Yeah.
Thursday of last week.
Right.
That was another one where I'm sitting there and I feel like I wasted 3.5 hours of my life watching that
Right.
football.
You're never getting it back.
Yeah, and so that's a tough sell. It's hard to get people excited. Like I know that people need to enjoy different brands of football and not just clamor for offense, offense, offense. But man, sometimes those games like that, even for people who enjoy watching defense, those are just tough watches.
Something last night, and this has nothing to do with the game. It has to do with their alternate broadcast with Peyton and Eli. Um, the their first guest, ironically, was Disney president Bob Iger,
Oh,
who talked about how much they love fans to see the game, and it's sometimes in business things don't go the way they should, and people should be you know should be upset if they can't get what they want. I mean, I don't know how more blatant you can get than you have the head of Disney shilling for ESPN to be forced onto YouTube. That was new to me. I have never seen. I mean, I've seen people, push the envelope here, but
Mm-hmm.
when you bring the president of the network on as your guest to
Yeah.
to trash you know a streaming service that isn't playing your stuff, I'm thinking that might have stepped across a Rubicon.
Yeah. Don't think that I've really minced my words when talking about ESPN recently,
Mm-hmm.
Disney or ABC. It's a greedy company. Bob Iger's a greedy man sitting at the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not going to change. I hope people don't listen to that and cave in. I would not go to the website. I would not buy ESPN Plus if you don't already have it. It's
Mm-hmm.
pointless. They are being greedy, is what they are, and they are trying to cling to what relevancy they still have left. I read something the other day that honestly was really the tipping point in my like. I still enjoy certain personalities on ESPN. Scott Van
Mm-hmm.
Pelt's one of them. Mike Greenberg, I like him as well. There are good people at ESPN. I'm not talking about them in particular. I'm talking about the company and the entity and the way they do things,
Right.
specifically regarding their sports coverage. I read something where a guy put out his side of an interview that he did with ESPN in terms of trying to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And the interviewer asked him the question, "What would you change about ESPN? Like if you or Sports
Mm-hmm.
Center, I think was the question. What would you change about Sports Center?" And he said, "I would probably do something more along the lines focusing on the highlights and talking about the games." And he said that the interviewer almost took offense to it and told him how wrong he was, that people didn't care about the games once they were over, and that people wanted headlines, not not highlights. It's sickening the direction that ESPN has turned. Probably going back to the mid 2000s, really is probably when they made that turn, mid 2010s, somewhere in there, to head towards this model where they stopped hiring sports journalists, started hiring former athletes, and
Mm-hmm.
really just giving uh, clickbait. Because I mean that's what it is. They're chasing clickbait, and they're not covering sports the way they should be covered. They've been greedy. You've thrown out the number. I believe it was $15 per
Yeah.
every YouTube TV subscription is the number that they're asking for. As of right now, YouTube TV subscription price is $59.99. They want a quarter of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing but pure greed. And to be honest, when Bob Iger does that, or every time I see I see somebody posting a video, asking to
Mm-hmm.
go to keep our networks, or when Stephen A. Smith goes tone deaf in the middle of all this and starts promoting some AI ad for a solitaire app because when he was at the NBA Finals, he got caught playing solitaire and not doing his job.
Right.
It drives me. It has driven me insane. And like when they do that, they it's they're it's almost like they're out on the street asking for change at this point.
Well, there is one more element to this story, and it's an element that sometimes gets overlooked, and that is that Disney owns Hulu,
Hmm.
and in a court settlement, they own part of Fubo TV. So, in essence, they want their money from YouTube. But if they don't get their money from YouTube, what they do is they tilt you toward buying, Hulu Live TV,
Hmm.
um, which is a clone of YouTube, and Fubo, which is also a clone of YouTube. So if
Hmm.
they can get you off YouTube and get you on Hulu Plus or get you on Fubo, then they've accomplished everything they've always wanted to get, and that is they now own you in that ecosystem of streaming, um, television. They got you because you're now buying Hulu, and you're, the Hulu Live package. or you're buying Fubo. So they just got, they got rid of somebody, a competitor. So basically, this is kind of like, leverage money, right? If you want to keep the content, then you're going to pay us $15. If not, we're going to take your subscribers, over to our streaming service. And it's not fun. And to be honest, when you're talking about ESPN's Sports Night, I'm sorry, Sports Center came into its own when Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann were the anchors.
Mm-hmm.
And what made Dan and Keith so good was they had a sense of humor.
Mm-hmm.
They showed highlights.
Yep.
They had comments, but not commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And they made an hour's worth of, of highlights and interviews fun.
Mm-hmm.
And people will forget, because that was an 11 o'clock show. They were finishing behind CNN, which had an 11 o'clock sports show that only went an hour, and that was Fred Hickman and Nick Charles. By the way, before it was Nick Charles, it was Dan Patrick. So they poached Dan. They brought Keith in from Los Angeles, and the chemistry was there because they're two bright guys. They're two good writers, and they communicate on TV. And if you've ever watched Dan's, radio show on, I guess it's on Peak. No, yeah, yes, it's on Peacock now. Or you've listened to it. I mean, Dan is the least controversial person I've ever met from that standpoint. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't look for controversy. He doesn't like controversy. He likes talking to people and hearing their opinions and then giving his opinions. And I think that's why I keep steering people to CBS, HQ.
Yep.
Because it's not about the volume or the whatever you can, how I don't really want to sit there and listen to two guys argue about something that I really don't give a damn about.
Yep.
But they want me to give a damn about it. And I don't think that's a situation for success. Honestly, and I've known Tony Kornheiser for years, was on his show numerous times, and worked with him and Mike Wilbon.
Mm-hmm.
That was organic. I mean, if you went to the Washington Post in the 1990s in the sports department, you would hear, pardon the interruption, on 3 desks back toward the end of the newspaper room in the sports department. That was Kornheiser and that was Wilbon, and that's who they are. They've been doing that for years. Yeah. So that, pardon the interruption, to me isn't as much about disagreeing to disagree. It's disagree because Tony has one way of looking at it, Mike has another way of looking at it, and they go about it in a collegial but fun way.
Yeah.
So when they vibe all the way around.
Yeah, when I brought up the interview, but when they got away from hiring guys like Tony and Mike and Scott Van Pelt, Rich Eisen, Stuart Scott, all of these really good, entertaining sports journalists, that's really when they lost who they were. I just keep going back to that.
Funny story about Scott. Scott lives in the as we like to call it, the DMV, District, Virginia and Maryland. And Scott was doing some golf reports, but he was the Callaway Golf ambassador. He was out pitching, Callaway golf equipment, and he got his interview, and everybody just loved him. Scott's about 6'6", 6'7". I mean, Scott's a big guy. But he is not prone to arguing, or he's not into the clickbait stuff. He just makes entertaining television.
Yep. Him and Stanford Steve are fantastic. Their
Mm-hmm.
podcast is good too.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are journalists out there. Pablo Torre's a good journalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I still like Dan Lepetard.
Mm-hmm.
And he left and he didn't live. I mean, talk about burning a bridge. I think Dan torched it. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, with good reason. I mean, they were moving him all over the show. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you'd wake up in the morning and try to figure out what time his show was
Yeah.
on, because they jacked him all over the place. But but Dan and those kind of guys. I mean, Fox never really had that,
Yeah.
and they tried and they kept poaching people, and it's just I don't. I really don't think that listening to why you don't like something is entertaining.
Yeah. No. I mean, unless you want to hear people be upset or you have some investment in the Dallas Cowboys, the Los Angeles Lakers, I'm not
Right.
sure most of ESPN's programming is for you.
It's a bit odd. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So, I think that we're heading down the home stretch here in college football, and I'm going to throw this one out to you. Is there a clear number one football team? I mean, you've watched them. I watched. I can't tell you there is. I mean, from my standpoint, I could see any number of 7 or 8 teams winning the national championship.
Yeah, it's a wide open race. I've talked about the way the time change has really been the silent
Mm-hmm.
equalizer in terms of everybody searching for parity and through the transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff. And really, the silent equalizer was time, really, all things considered. But I struggle to say there's a clear number one. I think a lot of people would probably point to Ohio State. And for Ohio State, obviously they have that win over Texas, but outside of
Sure.
that, their strength of schedule isn't fantastic in terms of who they've played. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they've got a they've got a good win on the road against Washington,
Mm-hmm.
Washington team that lost to Wisconsin this past week
Right.
at home, mind you. So they have a solid schedule and they've handled their opponents as they should. You could also go to an Alabama where you look at what they've done after they lost to FSU. You can't throw that out. It did happen. I know people
Right.
like to forget it since it's week one, and Alabama's looked like a different team since then, and Florida State also has looked like a different team since then in different respects. But no, I would point to Ohio State just because while they may not have necessarily played the best competition, I haven't really ever been in question as to whether or not Ohio State was going to win a football game. At least
Mm-hmm.
not in the second half, I haven't. So they've controlled and they've dictated the tempo and the way games have gone. They also have one of the best defenses in the country, led by Matt Patricia. And on that side of the football, you got guys like Igbenogson, Arvell Reese, and Caleb Downs. So they've got a really good defensive side of the football, even if their offensive side of the football doesn't necessarily keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like there's almost a distinctive line that kind of gets drawn between 4 and 5, between Alabama and Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
because of the way Georgia's looked this year and kind of everybody behind them has looked. There's not a team that's just been outwardly handling their business week in and week out. Once you get past Alabama, Alabama's handled their business, all things considered. Save that Georgia game where they won by 3, but still, they felt like they were in control for probably 2.5 quarters of that football game. So you got a majority there. Um, no, I think you're lying if you say you think you know who's going to win the national title. I think you're lying
Mm-hmm.
if you say you think you know who's going to win the Heisman right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because the matter of the fact is that I think you really have just a group of teams at the top and a group of players at the top of both of those conversations.
Absolutely. One other thing that kind of went viral this weekend was the Fox broadcast team in the Indiana game, where the kid makes that spectacular catch and gets his foot down, and Gus Johnson, is screaming about how, or he's screaming the play-by-play out. And I've heard a lot of people just laugh and say, well, it's he's overhyping things and he's gone nuts and all that. Look, what I will tell people, look, whether you like us or not, that's up to you. All right, that's your respect, not mine. But what people don't realize is where the press box is. Let's say where it is in Georgia. All right,
Mm-hmm.
the stadium can get pretty damn loud. All right. Just because the guy has a headset on doesn't mean it's that he doesn't, those are noise canceling. They're not.
Yeah.
Okay. So he meaning whoever the play-by-play person is gonna assumes they have to yell for you to hear it.
Yeah.
And they're right. They do. I mean, if they don't talk loud, you will not hear them. You will hear the crowd. Unless you turn the crowd noise down, and that looks stupid because you got people jumping around and no voice, no sound coming out of their mouth. So the audio guy has a very tough decision, and that is, do I keep the crowd noise up, which makes sense, and do I let Gus and Joe Klatt, in essence, scream over themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And so Gus was getting lambasted for his screaming, and I'll be honest with you. Gus is an enthusiastic guy, as is Kevin Harlan, and I love Kevin's work. And they tend to be loud in how they do things, but that doesn't make them bad. It just means that they really want you to feel the enthusiasm that they're feeling, which is fine.
I just think that comes down to not everybody's going to call a game the same way.
Right.
You either like it or you don't. That's the way Gus Johnson has always called his games.
Yeah.
That's never going to change, And there are certain aspects that, like, I personally have never been a fan of the nicknames that Gus Johnson hands out. That's just me personally. But other than that, I have no issues with the way that he calls games.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's I probably enjoy. One of my favorites right now is Joe Tessitore. I really enjoy listening to Joe Tessitore call a game.
He's come a long way with Jesse Palmer.
He has. In fact, one of my favorite calls that I remember Joe Tessitore making was back in 2017 when Georgia had really gotten started. Mississippi State was coming to town, and it was a big game for Georgia. They're headed towards. I think they were headed towards 6-0. They were either headed towards 6-0 or 7-0 if they had won that game. And they started off with a flea flicker. And the play that Jake Fromm gets it, completes it to Terry Godwin, touchdown. But the call that Joe Tessitore made on that play was fantastic. I loved it. I still love it. Honestly, that is part of what made me such a big fan of his, all things considered. So it's okay. People are going to call games different ways. That's the way it's supposed to be. You're not going to like every way that everybody calls the game. But if everybody called the game the exact same way, then you might as well just have the same dadgum broadcast and have somebody call from a studio.
Yeah. The other thing about that is, Joe is pretty much on the SEC most of the time. And when Brent Musburger got kind of like demoted to the Game 2 version just before he ended his career at ESPN, it was Brent that brought the name Joe Tessitore to the talent people at ESPN. It wasn't Joe was there already, but Brent said, "Look, this is a kid that eventually is going to be very, very good.
Yeah,
and he deserves being in a much higher spot than you guys have had him, over the years." And Brent, not for nothing, Brent's voice had some sort of impact on what who was involved. Tim Scanlon, by the way, was the gentleman who was involved that picked the talent for ESPN and their broadcasts and paired them up and all that. So Scanlon, giving his respect to Brent, said, "Well, we'll try him on a couple of bigger games."
Yeah.
And to his credit, Joe was equal to the task. So you can't ask for more than that.
No, you can't. I will say, for as much as I have dragged ESPN, and deservedly so, I will say save last year's NBA Finals team, but they have really nailed most of their broadcasting booths.
Mm-hmm.
At least when it comes to football, they do a really good job.
Yeah, and they've got a very deep bench.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, some of the like their A team across the board is really good,
Mm-hmm.
just in terms of their first games, and then you turn on some of their not not ABC games, their ESPN games, just in general. Like
Mm-hmm.
Mark Davis is really good. Louis Riddick's really good as a
Mm-hmm.
as a
Analysts, yeah.
color, yeah, an analyst. So they do have a Dusty Dvorak's another guy off the top of my head. They
Mm-hmm.
have a bunch of really good talent when it comes to calling football games. And then, oh, by the way, on Monday Night Football, they have Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So you can't look at it and go, "This is yeah." I think we both said that whether it's basketball, football, whatever it is, play by play wise and broadcast wise and production wise. No, I got no beef with ESPN. My beef is with them on their tentpole programming,
yep.
and that's where I'm not crazy about it. And even I give Fox some credit too on their broadcast teams. Their NFL teams are pretty good, um, and their college teams or broadcast teams are good. Still like Tim Brando. Tim's doing a good job out there with Fox,
Mhm.
and so they've got the production on most every one of these um, broadcast networks in how they do their work. I really have no problem production wise or broadcast wise with it. Um, I just think it's the stuff around it is a bit odd.
Yeah.
And one last thing, and I don't know how many people watch the Manning cast, but I watched it last night after first couple of minutes of watching the regular show.
Hmm.
And in a bad game, you hope that something entertaining will come up. And the game got so bad last night on the Manning cast that the Mannings weren't even talking about it. They were talking to their guests about this, that, and the other. And and the only way you knew things were going on is you saw the game on the screen. At
Yeah.
one point, I thought it was I gotten up at halftime and I was doing something and came back, and I had the Manning cast on, and I'm thinking, damn, that how long of a halftime did they have? And then I realized, well, no, that's not highlights. They're actually playing. Okay, um, so that's how engaged the Mannings were in that game last night. Even
Yeah.
they didn't want to watch it.
Yeah. I saw a clip. They were talking to Shane Gillis about his
Yeah.
football playing
Mhm.
career, and how illustrious his was.
Or infamous, whichever you want
Yeah.
to call it.
Yeah, depending on
Um,
how you want to see it.
right, exactly. All right, boys and girls, we've had some lot of fun here today. Talk some baseball. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're going to be coming up on the winter meetings here and see what's going on. So, and then we're now down into the stretch run for college football and for the NFL. So each day is going to get closer and closer to Judgment Day. And tonight, the CFP rankings come out. We'll see where everybody is and see if there's any changes.
Hmm.
And then Matthew and I will talk about that one tomorrow. So, Matt, any final thoughts, any final words before we move on down the road?
I have put out an article in terms of Drake Baldwin, who won the National League Rookie of the Year award.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Is that
out,
Sports Talk Georgia?
out on Sports Talk Georgia. So I did that. Also, kind of broke down some of where the Braves might be headed this offseason in that article.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably tomorrow we'll talk about what's going on at LSU and how they continue to screw up one of the best open jobs in college football.
Well, right now it's kryptonite. So the amount of people that aren't going there is crazy.
Yeah.
So, and as you said early on, they did a really stupid thing, and that was pissing off Jimmy Sexton.
Mm-hmm.
I can guarantee you, not a single one of his clients are going to interview for that job.
It's going to be hard sell.
Yeah. Look for the coach from East Texas. He's probably going to be the next coach at LSU. And
Yeah.
wait a minute, I was going to say North Texas, but at the end of the day, that I'm being cruel to North Texas, so I'll take that one back. There might be a Pee Wee football team out there that they grab the coach, or for that matter, who knows? Maybe Landry will take the job himself.
Yeah, there you go. Just he's got the right last name.
Right.
Just get him out there.
Wrong abilities, right name. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. All right, everybody, have a great day. For Matt, I'm Jim. Take care.